Hi.
Hey, this is fun.
No, have a seat. Have a seat.
All right.
So, Scott, you and I have a mutual friend, Jonathan Fields.
Indeed.
So the way we connected originally was we were both on the Good Life Project, right? And we went out to dinner and sat next to each other. Yeah. And you told me a little bit about Live Your Legend. So what is Live Your Legend, and why did you start it anyway?
Well, I feel like it started from everyone's beginning of hating your job. And
I hated my job.
Well, and you have to have this moment where you kind of can't stand it anymore. So I had
you have to have pain.
You have to have a lot of pain, generally a lot of pain, although my latest goal or my kind of purpose right now has been to figure out how do you manufacture the pain so that you don't have to have the heart attack.
Right.
You can actually do it before you get forced to.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a separate topic, but it's an important one. I started out at working actually down the street at a big corporation. It was miserable. It was the job I was supposed to have.
Were you working in a gray beige colored cubicle?
Yeah, and it was bad. It was really bad, and I could finish my job in 2 hours, and I was supposed to be busy the rest of the day.
Do you mind if I ask what your job was?
So I was a distribution analyst for an international division of some Fortune 500 company. It sounded cool actually, and then I got there and it was I don't like to talk about it very much.
Okay,
but we can.
You don't have to. I don't want to traumatize you.
No, but I'm so glad it happened because I said absolutely can never happen again.
It needed to happen though, right?
It did.
Because if you didn't experience that discomfort and that dissatisfaction with that job, would you be doing what you're doing today?
No, I don't. Absolutely not. I think about this a lot because there were a couple of jobs I so wanted out of college that were like my dream jobs that I had worked so hard for. I got straight A's, honors roll, everything, all the stuff.
Right.
And I got turned down from them, and I was crushed. And now it terrifies me to think if they would have said yes.
Yeah, you would have had
it's the Viktor Frankl stuff, right? You would
have a very different life, and you've got a pretty cool life.
I like it.
So is it Sunday you're leaving?
Saturday.
Saturday. So on Saturday, Scott and his wife they've sold everything here in San Francisco, and you are going to travel around the world for a year.
For a year. It's open-ended, but yeah, we plan to be back for Christmas this year, I guess. And we're currently selling our stuff. It's being removed as I speak, actually.
Should we put the word out? Do you have anything else for sale?
Oh, we got some good stuff.
All right. So what are you going to be doing? Tell me, what is the mission of Live Your Legend? Tell me about that.
Live Your Legend, it was named after The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho's book. And it's about
which is a great book, by the way.
Unbelievable book. I think it's the best-selling book second to the Bible, I'm pretty sure. It's an
The Alchemist, everybody read that.
You can read it in like 3 hours. I've read it 8 times every time I leave the country. It's about a boy pursuing his personal legend, like the path he can't not pursue, the path you never finish, you just travel it. That's just how life goes, because you love it, you're excited. So Live Your Legend is about finding and doing work you love, and it started out as kind of a career tools website, and we have guides and courses and stuff, which was great, but I realized that you can have the best career tools on the planet, but they're worthless if your friends tell you you're stupid for using them.
Right.
And sadly, as we all take the road, like people in this room are taking the road less traveled, a lot of people listening, but on that path, it's daunting, and a lot of your friends or people that were around you before you start to take this path can doubt you and think you're crazy. And if enough people tell you you're stupid and crazy, you'll start to believe them, and you'll probably give up. And so that's a tragedy. So we have to, how do we deal with that?
How do you surround yourself with people who will support you?
Right.
And you support them in turn, right?
Yeah, it's like Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I mean,
right.
I think that is the most powerful life hack in the history of the world. I mean, if you want to run a marathon, if you want to lose 50 pounds, if you want to change your job, hang around people already doing it, and it starts to become normal.
And that's something that you did, right? It's because you started, so you had this cubicle job, and you were in a lot of pain.
Yes.
Which actually served you later.
It did, indeed.
And you, instead of living that dullard existence in the cubicle, you decided to create this. But you got some help. You actually, walked your talk. You formed a group of supporters, and I think you actually moved, right, from Southern California to San Francisco?
Yeah, I was living in Santa Barbara. I'd gone to school, and I was living and working on there. And actually then I was working with a job I love with a good group of people, but I still wanted to be out on my own, doing my own thing. And so the thing was, Live Your Legend, before that, it was a different website, and for 4 years I got zero traction, literally like zero growth. It was like my parents and my wife, Chelsea, pretty much paying attention.
I thought that was cute. You mentioned that like nobody actually went to your website for the first 4 years.
And this is an important thing to remember. Like most people look at like models or people they look up to and think, I want to, be like them or do their thing. Well, pay attention to what they were doing when nobody ever had heard of them.
That's excellent advice.
Because you get totally confused. Like if you want to look at, I don't know, let's say like Tim Ferriss' 4 Hour Work Week. No. What was he doing before people knew who Tim was, or
More
who
than
Tony
4
Robbins
hours.
was, or what? Yeah, right. And so
well, Tony Robbins was bankrupt, and
yeah. I mean, it's just you got to look back deeper into it, and
Right.
also you're going to have poor expectations, which will lead to frustration, which leads to giving up way too early. Because this is a challenging process.
Yeah, and so you got to manage your disappointment, right? You have to expect the disappointment.
Or just measure differently. Like for me, for those 4 years, I was measuring by, am I writing things that I'm excited about? Am I sharing them with people who I think it can be helpful for? I was writing these book reviews for personal development books. I would send them to different friends who I thought they could be useful for. Even though the traffic was going nowhere, no subscribers, no nothing, I wasn't even really measuring that way either way.
What ignited this? So I know you were dissatisfied with your job, but then you obviously were starting to create a very specific vision, and you must have innately felt you had a purpose that was different than you were going to ever be able to live in a corporate cubicle. Was there like a moment that ignited this vision? Because you've created a worldwide community at this point.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, it's generally it seems like an evolution. But what happened was I said, all right, I have to find something I can screw up. That's how bad my job was. I had no impact at all. I literally put it in the negative, and then I went out to selfishly discover what do apparently the statistic is something like 80% of people don't like the work they do.
Right.
Which is pretty crazy.
Is sad.
So what do the 20% have in common? And I did this intense research project that's now been a decade long and growing, but it was mainly for myself. And then as I made those discoveries, and there were really like 3 things people had in common. When I made those discoveries, more friends asked for help, and I would sit down for lunch with them.
Okay, so let me pause
and,
you.
Yeah.
So this was a lesson that we talked about before. You solving a problem for yourself, and once you solve the problem for yourself, then you can solve the problem for other people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then
so go on.
And that's how
Sorry.
it was when people said, Scott, I want help, and I have to warn them because at that point, 80% of the people who would have lunch with me would quit their jobs within 2 or 3 months.
It's dangerous.
Well, and it wasn't that I was doing anything special. I mainly asked, why are you doing what you're doing? And they would say,
Why?
well, because I'm supposed to. And most people, when someone says out loud, because I'm supposed to, it's like a pattern interrupt. They know, wait a second, that wasn't right.
Yeah.
And then
It's
the
not a good
things that
enough
came
reason.
together. Yeah, but then I started to think, what if you could create a community where these crazy people like all of us, that are supported and we hang out together? Because if all the people who the world is saying are crazy are all together, then it becomes normal for us. And then maybe we can have some other people join us. And all of a sudden we start to build this, I call it a revolution, because I think that's really what needs to happen in this world of work and creativity and all this stuff.
I think when you have a choice, like if you have no choice, it's one thing. But if you have a choice, but you're not actually making that choice, it's an incredibly painful place to be.
Yeah.
And you don't want to look back on the landscape that was your life and say, I wish I would have taken that chance, and I wish I would have gone for it. It does help to have a community, though. So let's talk about that. You're going to go around the world, starting on Saturday.
On Saturday,
What if
yeah.
people want to meet you? Like, there are people all over the globe listening right now.
Yeah, so that's what's so fun about this right now. And first of all, you just touched on the biggest risk in the history of the world, I think. The risk that you will regret that you didn't do it. And that is how I run my life, my decision-making process, everything. It's not like, will I fail? Because you will always fail. Things won't always work out.
Right.
The best things happen that you didn't plan, all that stuff. So anyway, I love that you said that.
Is that why you decided to go travel around the world? Because you look back and think, well, you and your wife would have been really regretful if you didn't go for it?
20 or 30, I'm 80 years old, I look back, oh, I wish I wouldn't have traveled around the world. I mean, come on, like, it's seriously. But so what's fun is that now we have local communities for Live Your Legend in about 300 cities in over 70 countries.
So I just want to remark how that is an incredible, you're doing an incredible service for a lot of people. And one of the things we talk about in this course is, one of my famous quotes, or my Justin calls it my anisms, is it's not about you, it's about them, and when you make it about them, then it will be about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you are being of tremendous service to people all around the globe, and that's amazing.
I appreciate that. It's definitely not a you, it's a we, because the first local group happened in Sydney. And tomorrow night they're having an event. There's 3 continents coming to their event in Sydney. Sydney, I'm sure some of you guys are watching. But we have one of our most active groups is in Kisumu, Kenya, and Kuwait City. What's interesting is these have totally different cultural backgrounds, different belief sets, but everyone comes together for that same why that you talked about, because people want to make a difference, to look back in their life and think that it had mattered in some way, big or small. And so we've had these people cross-culturally, cross languages, cross everything, come together for this reason. And they get together every month. We launched this a year ago. It's a totally non-commercial thing, by the way. These are free. And
so you can all join. There's no, you can find, so what's the name of the web?
So if you just went to liveyourlegend.net/meetup, it'll take you straight to a page that tells you based on where you are in the world, where the closest meetup is.
Okay.
And tomorrow, we are doing a global same day, we call it a world party, where every meetup group meets on the same day all around the world. So we're going to have about 300 of these things in 70 countries all on the same day.
At the same time?
Tomorrow. Well, not at the same time because
Getting up late at night?
The first one starts probably in Sydney is where it's going to start first in
Okay.
about 18 hours, and then they start rolling. And so, but yeah, liveyourlegend.net/meetup, and that will just show you what you can do, and you can find a group and
So take note, everybody.
Find people.
Don't try and do this by yourself. The Facebook group, Join Artists Who Thrive, is great, but as we were talking yesterday, I was in the Whole Food parking lot talking to you as you were packing up your stuff.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about how, Facebook's great, Twitter's great, email's great, but it's not the same. It's sharing the same air, right?
So it's great because it facilitates this happening. It facilitates this community that we have around the world.
Right.
But it's only great if you use it as a tool to come back and do what you and I are doing right now.
Right.
Because this is firing chemicals in our body, like the oxytocin, the serotonin. That's
Right.
happening. That doesn't happen on Facebook.
Right.
You get these little dopamine
Skype,
hits.
right?
Or Skype. Yeah, even Skype. It's weird. Like when we hug, something different happened right there than if
Right.
we hung out on Skype.
Right.
But the sad thing is most people think a Facebook friend is a real friend. And that is the real tragedy, I think, of today. Because then people aren't getting outside of their house. And it's scary. And
It is.
And there's more stress and the cortisol, all this stuff, it gets crazy.
I think a lot of people are really lonely. Let's just say it. They're really lonely. And so guess what? There's other people who are lonely. So there's an opportunity to meet. Now, I think one of the things I learned about you is that you lived in Spain for a while.
Yeah.
And you had a different experience of community
Yeah.
there. And I just got back from England visiting my family. And there is a different experience of community there also. The food's not as good, but it's,
Spanish food's really good.
but it was, anyway, that inspired part of what you're doing too, right?
Well, it just woke me up. Like I studied abroad there, and then when I studied abroad when I was a junior in college. And when I couldn't get a job after college, I went on a trip around Europe for 6 weeks. Since I didn't have a job, we just stayed in Spain for the year and started a little English teaching business. And that was fun, and we were tour guides on the weekends of Spain, Morocco, and Portugal, which was it was a party, it was great, but you got to just see these people every day, they just wait to hang out with their community. And they for hours on end. And yeah, they're not super wealthy, they're one of the poorer countries in the EU, but you look at them on a day-to-day basis, there's just happiness. There's multi-generations in a home, there's just community, and this light bulb went off, there's a different way. It's not all about climbing this ladder based on status that some definition of success that society told you you're supposed to pay attention to.
You can define what success is.
Right, or else you end up this ladder leaned up against the wrong wall or a ladder to no wall, and it's a tragedy. So it was a total paradigm shift for me. Yet, when I moved home, I went straight to that Fortune 500 company because I listened to all my older mentors.
Right.
But it only took 7 months for me to quit.
Oh, good for you. It took me a lot longer to actually.
Well, it's a hard thing to do, and this is, by the way, not like a rah quit your job show.
No.
That is one thing to be really
Don't quit your day job.
Legend, really, we recommend do all this stuff on the side so you have a really powerful vine to jump onto when you leave whatever you're leaving. Or maybe you can, if you get some of this stuff right and you make tweaks, you might never need to leave your job and find this whole new set of purpose in what you do. So one quick quote that came to mind, what got me to leave so quickly, is I heard a quote from Warren Buffett, and it said, taking a job just to build a resume is like saving up sex for old age. Think about that for a second. Think of how crazy that is,
That's
right?
right, actually, that's true.
And because it's not for the privileged few. It's not you have to have some special background experience to do stuff you love. Everyone wants you to love your work. The world is better.
Right.
Even if you think your boss doesn't want you to. He doesn't want you to. It costs a fortune for your employee to not like what he does.
Right. And I have to say, I'm happy that you got out earlier. I trudged through for over a decade trying to make it work because I was under the spell that, artists starve.
Yeah.
And,
that's a crazy limiting belief that has to be broken, which is what you're doing here, which is awesome.
Yeah. So, I was able to break the spell for myself. So I'm hopefully breaking the spell for other people. But I do want to go back to the idea of not quitting your day job because that is what I did. And I don't recommend people put that enormous amount of pressure. I quit my job. I moved here to San Francisco. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a plan, and so it wasn't the best move. So if you could give, I mean, it worked, thank God. But if you could give people like 3 pieces of advice, you talk to people in your community all the time who are trying to make this fundamental change in their life, and you probably see patterns, right?
For sure.
So if you could deliver like 3 pieces of advice to someone who doesn't like their job, doesn't like what they're doing, and really wants to live their purpose, what would you say to them?
Yeah,
Besides going to your meetup group, which is free.
Totally free fun groups. But I was actually talking with Simon Sinek last week about this, who wrote Start With Why and has given one of the most
Great
popular
book.
TED Talks of all time. I've watched it literally 20 times. I built Live Your Legend Local purely based on the why of making a difference in the world. It's not like the group in Kenya who has a poster the size of half that wall that says Live Your Legend Local. They wouldn't have that sign that said Scott Dinsmore on it because it's not about, doesn't matter.
Not about you.
Most of them don't know who I am.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it because it's about the why. And so anyways, we were talking about Simon's work in leadership and inside of companies. And I said, so what do you do if you don't like your job? And he's like, you become a leader. Find some way to make other people's experience better. Like just do the things you can control right this second. Like you can always infuse kindness into and compassion to what you're doing and see
So change your state, change your mood.
your state. And the best way to change your state, I think, is to often to help someone else, to show you that you're not as bad off as you think. And then there's a lot of other things, like, take StrengthsFinder 2.0. That is such a priceless test.
So come out of yourself and be of service to someone else.
Yeah.
And then StrengthsFinders is excellent.
I'm not affiliated with that at all, but I give it and recommend it nonstop. It should be, I feel like it should be a $1,000 book. I think the test is like $9 or something, but whatever. Anyway, do something just to learn about yourself and think, okay, what am I spending my time on today that I don't like? And what could I be spending my time on that I do like inside my circle of control?
In your current circles. And last but not least, what would one piece of parting advice that you would give the audience?
Find one person who inspires you and spend time with them. No one does this stuff on their own.
I always say that we don't succeed alone.
No, nobody does. And this stuff is so scary and intense, and you will give up way too early if you're doing this stuff by yourself. I mean, that's just how it works. So.
It's true.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so happy for you. I think you're doing tremendous work, and I'm so glad you came on because, like I said, a lot of artists really work in isolation. I say artist in the broad sense of the term. So thank you so much.
It's an honor, and I think the one thing that I've learned in all this is that the fastest way to do the things you don't think can be done is to hang around people already doing them. So like hanging around Jonathan, who's going to be coming on soon. I mean, it becomes normal. So thank you.
Thank you.